And he basically says, how dare you care more about riches for yourself than you being rich towards God? And so in the context of greed and all of these financial worries and these desires for more and more and more, Jesus comes and he brings the matter to the topic of worry. He says this, he says, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life. Don't worry about the things that you're gonna eat or about your body and what you're gonna wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or they don't reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable you are than the birds. Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very thing, why do you worry about all the rest? Consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor, they don't spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. And if that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today, tomorrow is thrown in the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? Don't set your heart on what you're gonna eat or drink. Don't worry about it, he says. For the pagan world runs after such things, and your Father already knows that you need them. And then comes the famous wrap up at the end, verse 31, but seek first his kingdom, and all these other things will be given to you as well. Which again, it's not a promise that you're gonna have luxuries and a lavish lifestyle like King Solomon, which he references right there. But again, it is a promise that our God is one who will provide. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. I wanna define it a little bit. I wanna talk about what we're talking about with here with the problem of worry. I wanna point out, he is not saying that your problems aren't really your problems. He's not minimizing that by any stretch of the imagination. He's not saying that you should never pay attention to things that are legitimate concerns and things that are going on in the world around you that are not right. In fact, the original Greek word for worry, it literally means to be over anxious. It means to be distracted to the point of distraction, to the point of, hey, you should be going over here. Now you're distracted. You're thinking over here. You're looking over here. You're not going the right way. And so there's an anxious, there's a concern, there's a recognition that something is a problem, and then there's a way to be over anxious about it. Webster's going to say that it is a state of anxiety or unease where one's mind is continuously overcome with fear. And so it feels fear. It experiences this emotion of fear. It feels and experiences this thing going on inside of you that is all kinds of disrupted and everything. And then it continues to dwell from a place of fear. And so that's kind of what's happening right there. And so he's not saying your problems aren't your problems. He's not saying you should never pay attention to your problems. What he is saying is there's a legitimate way to deal with those problems and concerns that doesn't keep you locked up in a place of fear. There's a way to deal with your worries and your concerns that doesn't keep stealing all of your joy. And so from there's a couple problems that we can immediately see in the text about worry. Number one is he actually says, hey, it is not helpful to entertain your worry. And you're sitting there kind of going, okay, duh, I think I know that a little bit maybe, but Jesus feels the need to be able to point that out in these times of peace and these times of quiet to say, hey, it is not helpful to entertain our worry. It's what he says in verse 25. Can any of you by worrying add a single hour to your life? In case we're like wondering about that right now, the answer is absolutely not. Like some of us are kind of thinking, okay, like if I don't worry about this thing, then no one else is gonna worry about it. If I don't worry about it, nothing's gonna be done about it. I have to worry about it so that this problem can actually be solved. And Jesus is going, it's not actually helpful to worry at all. It's not gonna add a single hour to your life. I heard a pastor once say that worrying is kind of like paying interest on a debt that you might not even owe. And it's what it is. It's paying interest on a debt that you might not even owe. In other words, like most of the time, all we're doing is freaking out about a million different outcomes and tragic possibilities that'll likely not even happen. And so no, he's saying it's not even helpful to worry. Don't think for a second that it's helpful to be able to go down that path and never really adds anything to your life. In fact, we could add that it's not only unhelpful, but it's also harmful. Medical professionals today are saying that it's actually damaging to ourselves to be able to continue in this incessant worry and to go on and thinking, hey, things are normal. This is just the way that we do things and stuff like that. WebMD has had a great article about this a little while ago, talked about how excessive worrying can not only hurt the quality of your life, but it could be the thing that is hurting the longevity of your life as well. Something else to worry about right here. It says that 75%. So 75% of all doctor visits are stress and anxiety related, right? 43% of all adults suffer adverse health effects from stress. Talked about how the Occupational Safety and Health Administration declared stress as a hazard in the workplace, and it costs American industry more than $300 billion annually. That's why Dr. Charles Mayo of the famed Mayo Clinic put it like this. He says, excessive worry affects the circulation of the blood, the heart, and the glands and the entire nervous system. Though I've never known a man to die of overwork, I've known a lot of people who've died from worry. So something else to worry about a little bit right there. But in these moments of clarity, Jesus is pointing out the obvious to us in these moments when I'm thinking well, not overwhelmed and caught up in all of this excessive fear. Good to understand it's not helpful to go down that path. It is harmful, and to recognize some of these things that are going on right there.